Welcome, curious minds, to The Deep Dive. This is the show where we really try to cut through all that noise, give you the clearest, most useful insights from all the information swirling around out there.
Yeah, that's a lot.
We've all been there, haven't we? Just drowning in articles, research notes, especially in fields like cybersecurity that move so incredibly fast.
Oh, absolutely. Blink and you miss something critical.
It's easy to feel completely overwhelmed. So our mission every single time we do one of these deep dives is, well, to be your shortcut, to pull out those really important nuggets of knowledge so you can get informed, fast, and feel ready for what's next.
And that challenge, the information overload you mentioned, it's particularly intense in cybersecurity, wouldn't you say?
Definitely.
Because what used to be seen maybe as just a technical thing, back office stuff.
Right. Server rooms and blinking lights.
Exactly. That's rapidly changed. It's become this incredibly complex strategic challenge for, well, pretty much every organization now.
It's not just about firewalls anymore, is it?
Not at all. It's fundamentally about business resilience, keeping things running. Honestly, sometimes it feels like it's about survival in this totally interconnected world we live in.
That's a huge shift, and it's one we're really going to unpack today as we dive into something that, well, despite being so important, still seems widely misunderstood. We're talking about the CISSP Managerial Imperative.
Ah, yes, the CISSP.
Now, if you're anywhere near the cybersecurity field, you've heard of CISSP. It's seen as the gold standard, right? The certification everyone aims for.
It definitely carries that weight.
But here's the thing, the point that gets missed so often. People think it's just another technical exam. And, well, as we're going to explore today, that's just not the whole picture. Not even close.
You've absolutely nailed it. The core idea, the real essence of CISSP we want to unlock for you today is that this exam, fundamentally, it's a test of a security manager's judgment.
Manager's judgment. Okay.
It demands that strategic perspective, something that goes way beyond just technical fixes or, isolated solutions. You absolutely have to balance this complex mix of factors, managing risk, understanding the costs involved, and critically important, protecting human life.
Human life, wow. That's central.
It has to be.
Yeah.
And all these decisions, they've got to line up perfectly with the bigger business goals of the organization. This whole approach, strategic, looking at the big picture, that's what we mean by the CISP mindset.
And that is our mission for you, our listener, in this deep dive. We are going to thoroughly unpack this crucial managerial mindset. We're aiming to give you that shortcut we mentioned, a direct path to understanding why strategic decisions almost always win out over purely technical ones in this field.
Yeah, why the managerial answer is often the right one.
Exactly. Expect some maybe surprising facts along the way, definitely some aha moments that might just reframe how you think about things, insights that won't just help you if you're prepping for the exam, but maybe even more importantly, empower you for real leadership out there in the cybersecurity world.
And understanding this shift, it's not just, interesting theoretically. It's vital for your career path. It is, without doubt, fundamental for passing the exam, sure. But bigger picture, it unlocks serious career growth.
How so?
Well, when you really get this mindset, when you live it, you start positioning security differently. It stops being seen as just a burden or, a cost center.
The Department of No.
Right. Instead, it becomes a genuine business enabler, an indispensable one. And that changes everything, how you tackle problems, how you analyze all the different angles, and crucially, how you communicate those strategic solutions to everyone, from the tech teams right up to the board.
And speaking of unlocking potential, mastering something this nuanced, this strategic, it's often way easier when you're not trying to figure it all out alone, right?
Oh, absolutely. Community matters.
There's huge value, maybe underestimated value, in learning together, discussing these complex ideas, challenging your own thinking within it's a supportive group. It's a journey you take together.
Shared learning is powerful.
We'll definitely touch more on how you could be part of a community like that later on. But first, let's plunge right into the core of this CISSP managerial imperative. Okay, so let's tackle that common misconception again head on. When people think CISSP professional, what image comes to mind? Usually it's someone hunched over a keyboard, right?
Yeah.
Dimly lit room, screens glowing.
Typing furiously, configuring firewalls, patching servers.
Exactly. That purely technical hands-on image, that's what sticks.
It's a strong stereotype, no doubt. But what the CISP certification actually validates is a much broader skill set. It's about the ability to design, implement, and critically manage an entire cybersecurity program.
Design, implement, manage. Those verbs are key.
They really are. It's not about tweaking one device. It's inherently focused on leadership, on strategic planning, on management. It's not just the hands-on execution of tasks. People going for CISSP are expected to. And the phrase often used is oversee entire security programs strategically.
Strategically.
Yes. Demonstrating not just technical skill, but genuine security leadership with a holistic approach. You have to consider the whole ecosystem, the people, the processes, the technologies, all working together.
So it's the forest, not just the trees.
Precisely. It's about building and maintaining security across the entire enterprise, not just fixing one leaky pipe.
That's a huge distinction, a real paradigm shift, actually. It's not just knowing how to configure, say, a specific router.
Right.
It's understanding why it needs that configuration, who's responsible for keeping it that way, and how it fits into the bigger security strategy. So why did this shift happen? Why is the industry pushing for this more managerial view so aggressively now?
It really comes down to the threat landscape. It just keeps evolving relentlessly.
It never stops, does it?
Never. As cyber threats get more sophisticated, sneakier, just everywhere, organizations simply can't rely only on technical point solutions anymore. The sheer volume, the complexity, the way attacks adapt technical skills are absolutely essential for doing the work, but they're often just not enough to protect a whole enterprise at scale.
So you need something more.
You need professionals who can bridge that gap, the gap between the technical details and the business strategy. Someone who can, translate complex technical security concepts into plain business language that executives understand.
That's a skill in itself.
A critical one. And someone who can effectively align security initiatives with core business objectives. Think about it. The board of directors, they're not usually asking out the specifics of a new firewall rule.
No, they're worried about revenue, reputation.
Exactly. Risk to revenue, brand damage, loss of IP, protecting customers, the growing complexity of threats, plus the undeniable fact that cybersecurity is now seen as a fundamental business risk, not just an IT problem anymore. That's what has driven certifications like CISSP to evolve.
So the certification reflects the real-world need.
Precisely. They're designed to validate these strategic managerial skills. And when security works like that, as a true business enabler, it stops being just a cost center or an afterthought. It becomes a strategic asset, a competitive advantage even, helping the organization succeed and stay resilient.
And if you're thinking about your career path, this shift has some pretty exciting implications, doesn't it? How does really getting this managerial mindset translate into actual career growth in cybersecurity?
It paves a pretty clear path towards leadership, frankly. This focus on management naturally sets up CISSP holders for higher level roles. We're talking about steering the ship strategically.
Like CISO roles, security architects.
Exactly. Chief Information Security Officer, security architect roles, especially those with that broad strategic view, not just deep technical focus. These are the roles that really open the door to director, VP, or CISO positions.
So it's a stepping stone.
A significant one. But it's more than just the title or the paycheck. It gives you the chance to genuinely shape the security culture of an organization.
What does that look like in practice?
It means you're involved in mentoring junior folks, making key hiring decisions to build strong teams, developing training programs that lift the whole organization's security awareness. It shows that CISP isn't just about memorizing facts. It's about proving you have the capability to influence, to guide, to drive security from the top levels down.
So being a strategic leader, a change agent, not just a tech operator.
That's the heart of it. Fostering a security culture that's woven into the fabric of the business.
Okay, so we've established CISP is fundamentally about management, about leadership. Let's drill down now into the core principle, the sort of guiding light of this managerial mindset. If you're facing a tough security problem or maybe a tricky exam question, the correct answer, almost always, is the managerial one. What does that actually mean when you're making a decision?
It means shifting your primary focus. You need to prioritize strategic oversight, think about risk management across the whole enterprise, and ensure everything aligns with the business objectives. That takes precedence over getting bogged down in, say, granular technical settings or immediate hands-on actions.
It's a strategy first.
Always. The ultimate goal is to balance that equation we mentioned. Managing risk, controlling costs, and absolutely safeguarding human life, all within the specific context of your organization. That has to guide every decision.
You're thinking about the whole organization, its mission, its people, its critical assets, its long-term survival, not just fixing one technical glitch.
Precisely. For example, imagine a technical fix that looks great on paper but maybe puts employees at risk or violates regulation. A manager wouldn't hesitate to shut that down, even if it seems like a quick win technically. The bigger picture always dominates.
Makes perfect sense. It forces a much broader view. But it sounds like it requires a different way of analyzing problems altogether. It's not just finding the right answer, but maybe even more importantly, understanding why the other answers are wrong in that specific situation. That's a key skill, right?
It absolutely is, and it's a huge differentiator. Getting the most value here isn't just knowing what's right, but really understanding why the alternatives are incorrect, or maybe inefficient, or just don't align with the strategic goal.
It's critical thinking.
Exactly. It's fundamental for any effective security leader. It means you have to rigorously evaluate all the options, think hard about potential negative consequences, inefficiencies, how they might clash with that holistic managerial view.
So it's not just picking the best path, but also knowing the pitfalls of the other paths.
You got it. Anticipating and articulating why other choices are flawed helps you avoid unintended consequences. It strengthens your chosen solution, and it shows you really understand the whole problem space, not just one piece of it. Analyzing why alternatives fail builds a much stronger risk assessment capability. That's crucial for managing risk effectively in the long run.
Okay, so if we need to consistently think like a manager, there must be a structured way to prioritize things when making decisions. Is there, like, a hierarchy? A framework that tells us which answers are generally more appropriate in a CISP context?
There is, yes. And it's really a cornerstone of this whole mindset. This managerial hierarchy acts as a guide for strategic decision-making. It helps ensure the most critical things, security, continuity, organizational well-being, get addressed first and with the right strategic foresight.
All right, let's break it down. What's at the top?
First and absolute top priority, safety and human life, no question. Any decision, any action, any policy that impacts human safety, it takes precedence over everything else, period. Non-negotiable.
That's a moral and legal line.
Absolutely. Think about it. If a security upgrade, maybe technically brilliant, could accidentally disable emergency systems or create a physical hazard, a manager stops that immediately. Compromising safety, even unintentionally, leads to consequences far beyond just money.
Okay, safety first. What's next?
Second priority is governance, policy, and process. These are the administrative controls. They form the foundation, the framework for the entire security posture. A manager's core job here is ensuring the right security controls consistent with policy are designed and working effectively.
So defining the rules.
Defining, developing, and enforcing robust policies, clear procedures, standards, guidelines, and crucially, ensuring compliance with laws and regulations, GDPR, APA, whatever applies. These are the blueprints, the structures that guide everything else. Without solid policies, tech solutions are often just guesswork.
Makes sense. Policy provides the why. What's third?
Third is people, their roles, responsibilities, and training. You look at security incidents, and statistically, human factors are often a primary root cause. Negligence, lack of awareness, sometimes malicious intent.
The human element.
Right. So managers have a huge responsibility to make sure everyone is properly trained on security protocols, that roles are clearly defined, no ambiguity, and responsibilities are assigned so people are accountable. This also includes things like background checks during hiring, clear employment agreements about security duties, job rotation, separation of duties, all those HR security controls to manage insider risk.
Because you can have the best policies in tech.
Yeah.
But if people aren't trained or aware...
It all falls apart. They become the weak link.
Okay, people are third. What's number four?
Fourth is technology, the tools and configurations. Technology is obviously essential. It's the backbone of modern security. But from a managerial view, it functions mainly as a sophisticated tool. It's there to enforce policy, automate processes, support what people do.
It's an enabler, not the driver.
Exactly. Technical solutions, firewalls, IDS, encryption, they usually come after you've addressed the foundational policy, process, and people issues, or decided those alone aren't enough. For a manager, tech helps execute the strategy. It doesn't define it. Choosing a fancy firewall without a clear policy or trained staff, that's asking for trouble.
Got it. Policy, people, process first, then tech to support them. What's last?
And finally, fifth priority is cost and efficiency. Now, obviously, these are important for any business to run sustainably, but cost and efficiency should never compromise those higher priorities we just talked about, especially safety, strong governance, or effective security controls.
So you don't cut corners on security just to save a buck.
A strategic manager knows that being short-sighted here, underinvesting in security fundamentals, almost always leads to much bigger costs down the road. Think regulatory fines, huge reputation damage, lawsuits, or even, tragically, loss of life or critical business functions. Prioritizing immediate savings over foundational security is usually a false economy. It increases overall risk. It's about the long-term view, resilience, sustainability, not just this quarter's budget.
So this hierarchy really hammers home that a manager's main job is preventing those systemic risks, ensuring that baseline security hygiene is solid across the board, rather than just reacting and fixing individual tech problems.
Exactly. It's proactive. Build a strong system. Don't just constantly put out fires, like building a strong immune system versus just treating symptoms as they appear.
It's a fundamental shift from what broke to why did it break, how could we have stopped it, and how do we stop it happening again everywhere.
That's the strategic foresight, the long-term viability thinking. It lines up perfectly with the CISSP focus on risk management and security governance.
This clear structure naturally leads to comparing the managerial mindset we're focusing on with a purely technical one. We said they're distinct, but how do they really differ in their day-to-day focus and goals?
It's really important to see their distinct roles. Not that one is better, but they serve different complementary functions. The managerial mindset, its primary focus is strategic. Enterprise-wide risk, aligning security with business goals, setting up governance, defining policies, optimizing processes, and people.
Big picture stuff.
Right. The decision driver is balancing risk, cost, human life, always thinking long-term impact, compliance. The scope is holistic, enterprise-wide. Key activities, policy development, budgeting, leading teams, high-level risk assessments, vendor management, executive communication. The career path points towards CISO, security director, VP roles.
Okay, that's the manager. What about the technical mindset?
The technical mindset is focused on hands-on problem solving, deep system hardening, fixing specific vulnerabilities, configuring tools precisely. Their decision driver is technical effectiveness, stopping the immediate threat, making sure systems work right now, getting the implementation details perfect.
In the weeds, but necessarily so.
Exactly. The scope is deep specialization, penetration testing, network engineering, tactical incident response, detailed security architecture. Key activities are daily security ops, fixing vulnerabilities, maintaining tools, responding tactically to incidents. Career path often leads to roles like distinguished architect, principal engineer, lead pen tester roles needing profound technical depth.
So you absolutely need both for strong security. It's not either.
Absolutely not. Both types of professionals are essential. You need the deep tech expertise for implementation and the strategic managerial oversight for direction, resources, vision.
And the managerial path leads higher up
Because it involves that crucial skill. Being able to translate complex security risks into clear business terms and advocate for essential security initiatives at the executive level. That's how you get buy-in, get resources, and make sure security is seen as an enabler, not a blocker. That ability to bridge the tech-business gap makes you a strategic partner.
Okay, we've built this theoretical framework, laid out the hierarchy, compared the mindsets. Now let's make it really concrete. Let's apply this managerial philosophy to some actual scenarios. This is where you really see why a purely technical answer, while maybe right in a very narrow sense, often just isn't the best or most appropriate response in that bigger strategic context.
Exactly. These case studies aren't just about finding the right multiple choice answer. They're meant to really shine a light on the thinking process itself. They should clearly show why the highest level, most holistic solution, the one considering people, process, policy first, is almost always the winner from a CISSP perspective.
All right, let's dive in. Case study 1. The DDoS attack. Picture this. Your organization is getting hammered by a massive distributed denial of service attack. It's totally swamping your internet bandwidth. Your online services are down. The question is, which of these is the most effective immediate response? A, yank the main internet cable. B, call your upstream ISP for help. C, start blacklisting the attacker IP addresses. D. Reconfigure your firewall to block the bad traffic.
Okay, manager hat on. During a crisis like this, your top job is getting critical operations back online and minimizing the impact efficiently and effectively without causing more problems. When you're facing a massive DDoS, your internal tools, your own firewall, they're often just overwhelmed before the traffic even hits them
Well,
properly.
the pipe is already clogged upstream.
Exactly. So let's look at the options managerially. Option A, unplugging the internet. Sure, it stops the attack traffic, but it also kills all legitimate business using the internet. A manager would never see that as the most effective immediate response. It's basically causing your own denial of service, complete failure of availability.
Sacrifices the business entirely. Okay, A is out.
Options C and D, blacklisting IPs or reconfiguring the firewall, these are technical actions. But in a big detox, they're usually too slow, too much work, and ultimately pretty ineffective against thousands, maybe millions, of constantly changing source IPs. A manager sees these as in the weeds, fixes that don't solve the core problem, the saturated internet pipe, which is happening before the firewall. It's tactical, not strategic, for this scale of problem.
Right, the attack is already past your gate.
Which leads us to option B, contacting your upstream ISP for assistance. This is, by far, the most appropriate managerial response. Why? Your ISP has the massive infrastructure, the huge bandwidth, the specialized anti-DDoS tools to filter out that bad traffic before it even gets close to your network.
They fight it further upstream.
Precisely. This action represents the correct escalation process. That's a fundamental managerial responsibility, knowing when and how to use external capabilities. It's the fastest, most effective, most resource-efficient way to deal with the issue at its source. It shows a proactive, process-driven approach, leveraging outside help wisely. A manager knows their internal limits and uses the ISP's bigger toolkit. It's strategic, process-driven, not hands-on tech, and it directly supports the goal of getting the business back online fast.
That's a crystal clear example of looking beyond your own tech stack. Okay, let's try case study 2, the data remnants question. Scenario: you're decommissioning a hard drive with sensitive data. A data custodian follows procedure, performs a clearing operation, but later an audit finds residual data still on the drive. Uh-oh. The question: from a managerial perspective, what's the most likely cause of this problem? A. The technical tool used for clearing failed. B. The custodian lacked proper training on how to do it correctly. C. The security policy for data remnants itself was inadequate. D. The sanitization method chosen was wrong for that type of sensitive data.
Okay, manager's lens again. When something goes wrong, a manager wants the root cause, the systemic failure. And more often than not, that root cause lies in policy, process, or people, not just a tool malfunctioning. The scenario even tells us a person, the custodian, did the clearing. That immediately points towards a potential process or human execution issue.
So don't just blame the tool first.
Exactly. Let's look at the options. Option A, technical tool failure. Possible, sure, but it's unlikely to be the manager's first thought or the most likely cause. Technology is used by people following processes. A manager looks there first. The tool failure might be a symptom, not the root cause.
Okay. How about D, wrong method used?
Option D, improper sanitization method. That's a valid technical point. But the scenario says a method was used, it just didn't work completely. Why was the wrong method used, if that was the case? It often comes back to the custodian not knowing better or the guidance being unclear, which points us back towards training or policy communication.
So D might be a symptom of B or C.
Often, yes. Now, option C, inadequate security policy. This could be the root cause if the policy was missing or just bad. But a manager's job is also to make sure good policies are actually followed. If a decent policy existed but wasn't executed right, the issue isn't just the policy on paper, it's the implementation, the human element. This is a governance issue, true, but the scenario feels more like an operational execution failure involving a person.
Which leaves B.
Which leaves option B, lack of proper personnel training on sanitization procedures. From that managerial viewpoint, the most common, most pervasive root cause of process failures is often human error. And that frequently comes down to inadequate training, not fully understanding the steps, or maybe the procedure itself being ambiguous or poorly communicated.
The manager's job is to ensure people can follow the policy.
Exactly. The custodian tried but failed to fully clear the drive. That strongly suggests a gap in their knowledge, a misunderstanding, or unclear instructions. It's a direct human and process level issue. It fits right into the people or process layers of our hierarchy. It's a systemic thing a manager fixes with better training or clearer procedures, not just by swapping out a tool.
Another great example of looking for that underlying systemic cause, not just the immediate technical fault. Okay, one more. Case study 3, the ransomware attack. Nightmare scenario. Ransomware hits, files encrypted, critical business functions are dead in the water. You've done the first steps. Isolated infected systems, told leadership, started forensics. Backups are available, but here's the kicker. They are untested. The question, what is the best next action? A, start restoring from those backups immediately. B, pay the ransom demand to get data back fast. C, validate the integrity of the backups before starting any restoration. D, wipe everything and rebuild systems from scratch using original installs.
Okay, crisis recovery. Manager's priority number one here is exercising meticulous due diligence, trying to restore from untested backups. That is a massive risk, a huge failure of due diligence. A strategic manager must verify that the recovery plan, and especially the backups themselves, are actually good, reliable, uncorrupted before kicking off a big restore.
Verify first, restore second.
Absolutely. It minimizes risk and massively increases the chance of a clean, successful recovery. That's core managerial responsibility. Let's look at why the others are wrong. Option A, restore immediately from untested backups. That's reactive, maybe even panicked. Definitely not responsible management. The risk of a second failure backups being corrupt, incomplete, maybe even containing the ransomware still is just too high.
It can make things much worse.
Dramatically worse. Prolong the outage, lose more data, destroy confidence in the recovery process. It's a gamble a manager simply cannot take with the business.
Okay, A is out. What about paying the ransom? Option B.
Option B, pay the ransom. This should always be the absolute last resort. It often goes against company policy, ethics, sometimes even the law. Plus, paying validates the criminal's business model, encourages more attacks, and critically gives you no guarantee you'll get usable data back or that they won't hit you again later. It's loaded with risk and ethical problems. A manager avoids this unless every other option is truly exhausted and proven impossible.
So generally avoid B. What about D, rebuild from scratch?
Option D, rebuild from scratch. Technically, this ensures a clean environment, but it's usually incredibly slow, labor-intensive, and resource-draining. While it guarantees clean systems, it's not the best next action if backups might be useful. It ignores a potentially faster path. A manager wants efficient recovery, provided due diligence is done. Choosing D right away suggests a lack of faith in your own backup processes, which ideally should be tested and reliable.
Which brings us back to C.
Exactly. Option C, validate the integrity of backups before starting restoration. This is the only choice that screams proper due diligence, due care, and a responsible strategic approach. The manager's priority is a controlled, verified, successful recovery. Minimize reinfection risk, minimize corruption risk, maximize the chance of success. This aligns perfectly with that principle. Due diligence is the ability to prove due care.
You have to check the parachute before you jump.
Precisely. It prevents that second failure from using bad recovery assets. A manager ensures recovery plans aren't just theoretical, they're proven to work when needed most. Restoring from untested backups, that's an unnecessary, potentially catastrophic risk in an already bad situation.
These cases really do make the managerial mindset tangible. So a quick recap of the big takeaways.
Escalate appropriately. Leverage external experts like the ISP. Prioritize business continuity over trying to fix it all yourself when overwhelmed.
Focus on root cause analysis, usually pointing to people-process issues like training gaps or unclear procedures, not just blaming technology.
Exercise absolute due diligence. Validate your recovery assets, backups, before acting. Mitigate risk to ensure a controlled, successful recovery. Don't gamble.
What really stands out across all these is how the manager's focus keeps coming back to making sure the system works, the processes, the policies, the people being enabled and accountable. It's always about that proactive, preventative stance.
Exactly right. It's about building resilience into the organization so it can handle threats and recover, not just reacting to individual incidents. That's the strategic difference.
Those case studies were incredibly helpful, really clarified things. So now let's try to pull all these ideas together into a kind of universal framework. A practical step-by-step way you can apply this managerial mindset to basically any CISSP question or even real-world decisions, something to help you consistently get into that leader's headspace.
Yeah, this is about providing a structured approach. It's not just about knowing stuff. It's about developing that analytical way of thinking, that strategic viewpoint that defines a security leader.
Okay, step one, deconstruct the question. Sounds basic. But what are we really looking for when we tear apart that question?
It's more than just reading it. It's almost like a forensic analysis. You need to hunt for those critical keywords and truly grasp what's being asked. Pay super close attention to words like most, first, best, primary, least.
Those aren't just random adjectives.
Not at all. They're explicit signals. They tell you the question demands prioritization based on managerial impact. Is it about immediate business continuity, the biggest risk reduction, adherence to policy? These words force you to compare the options using that hierarchy we discussed to find the absolute optimal response for the given situation. It lifts you out of just finding a correct technical answer to finding the most appropriate managerial response. You have to figure out the strategic intent behind the words.
Got it. Dig into the keywords, understand the priority needed. Then, step 2, identify the managerial imperative. How do we figure out what the question is really asking from that manager's point of view, cutting through any technical distractions?
This step is absolutely key for filtering out the noise. You need to instinctively ask yourself, is this question really testing my understanding of governance, policy, process, roles and responsibilities? Because those are the main levers a manager pulls.
It's usually not about the config details.
Rarely. Managers operate strategically. They influence security by setting and enforcing policies, optimizing processes, managing and training people effectively. So, a question looking for a managerial answer will almost always point towards these higher-level administrative controls and strategic thoughts. It's about knowing where a manager's influence and responsibility actually lie, usually pretty high up.
Okay. Identify the core managerial issue, which leads logically to step 3. Evaluate options with the hierarchy. This is where that managerial hierarchy of concerns we talked about becomes your guide, right?
Right. Exactly. Once you know the managerial angle, you take each answer choice and systematically check it against our hierarchy. Safety, human life first, then governance, policy, process, then people, then technology, and finally cost efficiency. And here's a critical part of this step. Be ready to eliminate technical answers if a better policy, process, or people-focused option exists.
Why eliminate the tech answer?
Because the hierarchy explicitly puts policy, process, and people above technology. So if an option addresses a higher level concern in that framework, like a policy solution versus a tech fix, it's inherently more managerial and almost certainly the better choice. This reinforces that CISSP focus on solid foundations and administrative controls over just specific tools or technical tweaks.
Makes sense. Prioritize based on the hierarchy. Now, step 4 is suggesting we adopt the CIS or risk manager's lens. How do we actually make that mental switch and keep it on?
You have to consciously do it. Consistently shift your perspective to think like a chief information security officer or a senior risk manager. It's not just role-playing, it's a different way of seeing the problem. This forces you to consider the broader business impact and the overall organizational risk of every single option.
Beyond the immediate technical fix.
Way beyond. You're thinking long-term strategic implications. A CISO or risk manager cares about the organization's holistic security posture, how it aligns with business goals, financial health, legal standing. The decisions are driven by the company's risk appetite, compliance rules, strategic objectives, not just whether a tech solution works in isolation. It demands that bigger business-centric view. You're constantly asking, what's the ripple effect, legal issues, reputation impact, bottom line, long-term goals.
Think like the executive responsible for risk. And that leads to the final step, step 5. Choose the holistic answer. What exactly makes an answer holistic here?
The right answer in this CISSP managerial context almost always represents a systemic solution. It addresses the root causes, maybe inadequate policies, poor training, flawed processes, rather than just patching up the immediate symptoms.
Fix the foundation, not just the crack in the wall.
Beautifully put. It reflects a manager's core responsibility for continuous improvement, for building a truly robust, long-term security posture. A manager aims for solutions that stop the problem from happening again and genuinely make the organization stronger, more resilient, more mature, fixing symptoms. That's often necessary tactical work for the operations teams. Addressing root causes, that's the manager's strategic job. It's about proactively building that resilient security program, not just reacting to fires, building the fortress, like you said, not just patching fence holes.
And that really brings us full circle on this deep dive. This journey today, I really hope it's shown clearly that getting CISSP certified is, well, it's a transformative process. It's not just proving, stuff. It's about deeply cultivating that strategic managerial mindset. And that mindset is absolutely vital for leading effectively in cybersecurity today.
That sums it up perfectly. Success, whether it's on the tough CISSP exam or out there in the complex world of real security management, it really hinges on prioritizing governance, solid policy, capable people, and smart processes, often over purely technical fixes. By understanding not just what's right, but critically why the other options are wrong, you develop that nuanced judgment, that ability to balance risk, cost, and human life within the bigger picture of business goals.
The certification validates that judgment.
Exactly. It's a powerful validation of this essential mindset for navigating today's threat landscape and really contributing to your organization's resilience and success. It signals a commitment to excellence, to ethics, to constantly learning in this critical field.
And ultimately, mastering this managerial mindset, it makes you, our listener, an incredibly valuable strategic partner inside your organization. It gives you that ability to translate the complex tech stuff into clear business language.
Which lets you effectively advocate for security, get the resources you need, drive those critical initiatives from the top down.
That capacity to bridge the tech-business divide. That's what makes a CISSP professional so valuable strategically. It transforms security from being seen as a cost or a roadblock.
Into a true enabler of growth, stability, and even competitive advantage for the organization.
So, in this world of constantly evolving cyber threats where new challenges pop up every day, real security leadership isn't just about fixing problems after they happen. It's about proactively shaping a resilient future for your organization, anticipating risks, building strong defenses from the start, which leads to our final thought for you to chew on. Thinking about this managerial mindset, what's one foundational security principle you'll commit to championing in your own role, knowing the deep long-term impact it can have on your organization's resilience and overall success? Now, if this deep dive really got you thinking about CISSP, about understanding this crucial managerial mindset, and maybe you're looking for a place, a dedicated community to connect, learn, and grow with other professionals on this path, well, we have something really special for you. You should head over to CISSPstudygroup.com.
Yeah, it's a great resource. This community is specifically designed to give you the resources, the discussions, the insights you need to really get a handle on this strategic approach. It's a place where questions are absolutely encouraged, celebrated even, where that collective knowledge builds real practical expertise. You benefit from hearing all sorts of different perspectives.
We really believe in that power of learning together, sharing knowledge, to lift everyone's understanding.
Definitely. It helps accelerate the journey for everyone involved.
And hey, if you know other people, colleagues, maybe people you mentor, or even your own mentors who you think would really benefit from a supportive, knowledgeable community focused on CISSP prep and cybersecurity leadership, please share CISAstudygroup.com with them.
Yeah, spread the word.
Help us build an even stronger network of these strategic security minds. We're all working towards making our digital world safer, one leader at a time. And that's all for this deep dive. We truly hope it's giving you a powerful new way to look at cybersecurity leadership, maybe transformed your perspective a bit, and empowered your decision-making. Until next time, keep digging deep.